صلوات اللهم صل على محمد آل محمد عجل فرجهم. آئی ہاتف کی آواز شیخ کو، اترو شبیر یہ کربلا ہے، بس قدم اب نہ آگے بڑھاؤ، اترو شبیر یہ کربلا ہے. آئی ہاتف کی آواز شیخ کو، اب سفر ختم ہے ابن زہرا، لبے دریا کرو خیمے برپا، حشر تک ہے یہیں تم کو رہنا، اترو شبیر یہ کربلا ہے. آتی ہاتھی کی آواز شیخ کو، اترو شبیر یہ کربلا ہے. یہیں 9 روز مہمان رہو گے، کھانے پینے کی ایذا سہو گے، بھوکے پیاسے یہیں قتل ہوں گے، اترو شبیر یہ کربلا ہے. آئی ہاتف کی آواز شیخ کو، اترو شبیر یہ کربلا ہے. مرتے دم بھی نہ پانی ملے گا، پیاسی گردن پہ خنجر چلے گا، سر تمہارا سینہ پر چڑھے گا، اترو شبیر یہ کربلا ہے. آئی ہاتف کی آواز شیخ کو، اترو شبیر یہ کربلا ہے. لاش 40 دن تک تمہاری اسی جنگل میں اڑی یا رہے گی، رونے والا بھی ہوگا نہ کوئی، اترو شبیر کربلا ہے. آئی ہاتف کی آواز شیخ کو، اترو شبیر یہ کربلا ہے. آئیے بسم اللہ. صلوات محمد وآل محمد.
اللہم صلی علی محمد.
فدا ہو اس پہ سلامی ہے جس کا نام حسین، میرا موئی میرا آقا میرا امام، میرا موئی میرا آقا میرا امام. مجتبیٰ کو بھیج کے روزے پہ کر رہا ہوں دعا، کرے قبول الہی میرا سلام، کرے قبول الہی
میرا سلام
جو کربلا کی زمیں پر ہوا تھا ان کا ورود، تو پھر کے دیکھتے تھے قبر کا مقام، تو پھر کے دیکھتے تھے قبر کا مقام، سنا نہائے کسی سنگ دل نے لاکھ کہا، رسول کا ہوں نواسا ہے میرا نام، رسول کا ہوں نواسا ہے میرا نام، نہ پوچھو وقت وہ کیسا تھا جب مدینے سے چلے ہر ایک کا لیتے ہوئے سلام، چلے ہر ایک کا لیتے ہوئے سلام، حسین فدا ہو اس پہ۔
ماشاءاللہ۔ مومنین باواز بلند صلوات۔ زباں پر مدح باغ علی کے نونہالوں کی، زباں پر مدح باغ علی کے نونہالوں کی، گلستان سے نہیں کا مجلس نازک قیا، گلستان سے نہیں کا مجلس نازک قیا، جگہ جمولی شینے تو ہاتف نے کہا رو کر، یہیں بستی بنے گی فاطمہ کے نونہال، یہیں بستی بنے گی فاطمہ کے نونہالوں کی۔ جب آتا ذکر بیٹوں کا تو زینب رو کے کہتی تھی، خدا بخشے ابھی کیا عمر تھی ان مرنے والوں، خدا بخشے ابھی کیا عمر تھی ان مرنے والوں، درے خیمہ پر زینب پیٹ کر سر کو یہ کہتی تھی، ارے لوگو خبر آئی نہ رن سے میرے لالوں، ارے لوگو خبر آئی نہ میرے لالوں، گرے جب شاہ گھوڑے سے ندا ہاتف کیے آئیں، زمیں جھاڑی ہوئی ہے فاطمہ زہرا کے بعد، زمیں جھاڑی ہوئی ہے فاطمہ زہرا کے بالوں کی، زباں پہ مدح۔ مومنین باواز بلند صلوات۔
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد۔
اے مومنو حسین سے مقتل قریب ہے، آخر ہے عمر منزل اول قریب ہے، شہر مدینہ دور ہے، جنگل قریب ہے، زہرا کا چاند چھوٹتا ہے بادل قریب، زہرا کا چاند چھوٹتا ہے بادل قریب ہے، لینے کے واسطے ملک الموت آتے ہیں، مقتل کو اپنے پاؤں سے شبیر جاتے، مقتل کو اپنے پاؤں سے شبیر جاتے ہیں۔ الخیسہ صبح منزل آخر آیا ہوئی، لیکن یہ صبح سبت نبی کو کہاں ہوئی، جس جا سواری رکے نہ آگے رواں ہوئی، حیران سپور خسرو مکون و مکان ہوئی، 6 گھوڑے بدلے دوش دشتے نبی کے سوار نے، لیکن قدم بڑھایا نائک راہوار نے، لیکن قدم بڑھایا نائک راہوار نے۔ جنبی جو مرکبوں میں نہ پائی حسین نے، ایک مشت خاک جھکے اٹھائی حسین نے، خود سونگی اور بہن کو سنگائی حسین نے، ہمشیر کی سنی یہ دہائی حسین نے، ہمشیر کی سنی یہ دہائی حسین نے۔ ہے یہ خاک پھینکو میری جان جاتی ہے، بھیا تمہارے خون کی بو اس سے آتی ہے، بھیا تمہارے خون کی بو اس سے آتی ہے۔ عباس کو پکارنا آگے علم بڑا، منزل یہی ہے چھاونی پردیسیوں کی چھاؤ، ہم شکل مصطفیٰ کو ندا دی بڑے نہ جاؤ، بیٹا خناتے گھیرو سراچے یہیں لگا، بیٹا خناتے گھیرو سراچے یہیں لگا۔ اسے کو تم ہوا ہے ہمارا سفر تمام، 10ویں کو ہوگا فاطمہ زہرا کا گھر تمام، 10ویں کو ہوگا فاطمہ زہرا کا گھر تمام۔ الخیسہ خیمے ہو گئے استاد جاں بجا، اور خیموں میں اترنے لگی آل مصطفیٰ، دیوڑی سے پھر کجاوا زینب نہیں ملا، خود اہتمام کرنے لگے شاہ کربلا، خود اہتمام کرنے لگے شاہ کربلا۔ روکی خنات اکبر و قاسم نے آن کر، عباس گرد پھرنے لگے نیزہ تان کر، عباس گرد پھرنے لگے نیزہ تان کر۔ مسند پہ یہاں بٹھا کے بہن کو شہ خدا، کرسی بچھا کے بیٹھے قریب حرم سرا، تھے دست و بستہ گرد جوانان بے وفا با وفا، لے لے کے نظر آئے زمیندار کربلا، لے لے کے نظر آئے زمیندار کربلا۔ فرت خلق سے شبیر ہو گئے، نظروں پہ ہاتھ رکھ کے بغل گیر ہو گئے، نظروں پہ ہاتھ رکھ کے بغل گیر ہو گئے۔ بٹھلا کے پہلوؤں میں یہ کیا بیان، اے کربلا میں تمہارا ہوں میں ماں، ظالم مجھے ستاتے ہیں جاتا ہوں میں جہاں، بیچو جو یہ زمین تو چند دن رہوں یہاں، بیچو جو اس زمین تو چند دن رہوں یہاں، رہنے سے میرے سب یہاں آرام پائیں گے، خاک شفا تمہاری زمین کو بنائیں گے، خاک شفا تمہاری زمین کو بنائیں گے۔ شہ بولے آہا مجھ سے یہ زینب کا تھا کلام، بھیا قبائلے میں میرے اکبر کا ہوئے نام، یعنی کہ اس کی ملک میں ہوئے زمیں تمام، اب آ جاؤ کہہ دو کہ مجبور ہے امام، اب آ جاؤ کہہ دو کہ مجبور ہے امام۔ 18 سال کے یہ زمانے سے جائیں گے قبر کی جگہ علی اکبر بھی پائیں گے قبر کی جگہ علی اکبر بھی پائیں گے اب وقت ہے دعا کا کہے ہے شدت کہو شدت بکا آئیں کہیں دیر برے مزمان مرتضیٰ یا رب ہے جیتے شیعہ سلطان لافتہ قسمت برائے سب کے محبانی ازا قسمت برائے سب کے محبانی یا رب نہ کوئی غم ہو انہیں جز غم حسین ان دوستوں کے ہاتھ اور ماتم حسین ان دوستوں کے ہاتھ اور ماتم حسین
لعنت اللہ قوم الظالمین.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, inshallah, the majalis at this center will continue till the 12th of Muharram. And all these majalises will start exactly at 7:30 and the lecture will start at 8 o'clock, inshallah. All these majalises will be recited by our scholar, Sheikh Roushandel. I would now like to request Sheikh Roushandel to please come on to the mimbar to recite the lecture for tonight. Bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa az buland salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد والثناء لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنام حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين الهداة المهديين ولا سيما على بقية الله في العالمين صاحب العصر والزمان روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would like to express my condolences on the arrival of the holy month of Muharram and the martyrdom anniversary of Imam Hussain alayhi salam and his true companions. And I would like to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the opportunity of attending these majalis, and we need to truly be grateful for this. These majalis of dhikr, majalis of remembrance of Imam Hussain alayhi salam are considered to be one of those majalis that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran has mentioned that He has given permission to houses. He has given permission for His name to be mentioned in houses on earth. في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه يسبح له فيها في الغدو والآصال رجال لا تلهيهم تجارة ولا بيع عن ذكر الله. What's the sign of these houses? These are certain places on earth that Allah has allowed His name to be mentioned. And within these houses, there are people who gather, some during the day, some at night. And they mention the name of God, they remember Him. And what's the quality of these people? These are rijalun, these are people. لا تلهيهم تجارة ولا بيع عن ذكر الله. They engage in trade, they engage in business, they engage in life. They're not people who stay away from these things. They're very active in their communities. They provide for their families. But there's one condition that they need to make sure they fulfill in their life, and that is that whatever they are doing does not distract them from remembrance of God. And when people gather together in these majalis, this is one of the signs. We could have been doing many other things, but the love of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, who's the wali of Allah, has brought us all together here. And we're hoping to remember the name of God, and by remembering God, He will remember us. And His remembering us is an influence on our life. It's not just remembrance, because God remembers everything. لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم. He doesn't sleep. There's nothing that He's not aware of. So when He remembers us means there's certain blessings that inshallah will come into our life when we remember Him, when we remember His awliya. So we are hoping for that tonight, inshallah. And Allah has during the year has different times that there are certain breezes of blessings that He bestows upon people. In a narration it says Allah has certain times during the year that these times are special, and Allah sends breezes of blessings. إِنَّ لِرَبِّكُمْ فِي أَيَّامِ دَهْرِكُمْ نَفَحَاتٍ. And all you need to do is just to put yourself in the way of this breeze. And that's it. And how do we do that? By letting go. We sit here, whatever we are, whatever we have done in our life, before we enter these majalis, there are certain conditions for us to be able to benefit from these breezes. We let go of everything that we've done so far, and inshallah we'll talk about these topics in the coming nights. I'll mention exactly what we're going to discuss. But before we come to these majalis, one of the conditions is that we sit down and we contemplate and we do istighfar for every wrong that we have done, those that we do remember and those that we don't. We ask for forgiveness from people around us because these are conditions for us to be able to benefit from these breezes. What's the point of coming to the majlis and there's showers of rain, the rain is showering, there's blessings on us, but our container, instead of it being facing upwards, it's downwards. What causes this container to be downwards? It's the a'mal that we have. But do we become hopeless? No. One of the nights, inshallah, we're going to be opening up the topic of istighfar, inshallah. And how beautiful the topic of istighfar is, the concept of istighfar, and how it can help us in our life. And instead of make us these sorrowful, depressed beings who are always asking for forgiveness, in other way, it can actually empower us. It can push us forward in life. So one of the conditions to benefit from these breezes is basically to come here with a purified heart. No one can claim that we do have a purified heart, but we ask God to forgive all our sins. We do commit sins, knowingly or unknowingly. We do harm other people. Some of us don't have the best akhlaq. Some of us in our family are not the best of sons or daughters, or are not the best of husbands or wives or children to our families. So before we come to these majalis, we ask for forgiveness from whoever we have harmed or hurted, and we ask forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this will allow us inshallah to fill our containers with the blessings of God. And that's it. Blessing is showering. It only needs us to prepare ourselves. So inshallah, with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, we prepare ourselves for the lecture for tonight. The topic I chose for these series of lectures is the topic of reconnecting with God in the modern age. Why is it important to discuss this? We're living in the West, and even if we were not living in the West, even if we were living in the East, because many of us are, in a way, living in the West, but it's not really the West for us here. We've got very close communities with people who, are all from back home, so we don't really feel like we're living in the West. But the thing is, even if that is you and that is your life, we are living in a time that even at your home, these devices and TV, you're bombarded with information, and not just that, it takes away your focus, it distracts you, and instills doubts in your mind, which doubts in and of itself is not a negative thing. If you start doubting some of those things that were taught to you, this doesn't mean it's a bad thing. We have narrations. This person went to, I think, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. He said to the Imam, "Oh Imam, halaktu. That's it. I'm destroyed. I'm going to hell." And the Imam's like, "What's going on?" He says, "Shakaktu fi wujudillah. I have doubt in the existence of God now." So he was expecting the Imam to say, "Astaghfirullah, go do some tawbah. What is this? Shak is very bad. You shouldn't be engaging with these thoughts." But on the contrary, the Imam, it is narrated that he said to him, he says, "It's fine, relax. The God that you are doubting is actually good for you to doubt, because you are doubting in a God that was taught to you, which was very limited, your perception of Him, and you doubting in Him can, it doesn't mean it does necessarily, but can play the role of a stepping stone for you to then know God in a deeper manner and bring Iman to Him." This is a very important point. So when I say reconnecting to God, it's about many of us may be disconnected, or to some degree our connection is weaker in some levels to some of the concepts that basically we engage with and we are taught. And inshallah, in these nights, we're going to discuss how to reconnect with them. Because doubting in them is not necessarily bad. What is bad is staying in doubt and accepting doubt as your destination. Doubt is a good stop. Imagine you're getting on a bus. There are stops until you get to your destination. Doubt is not a bad stop, but it's a bad destination. You have to go through doubt in order to reach yaqeen. Not only it's not a bad stop, but some even claim that it's inevitable. If you want to know something, you start with a doubt. Is this true or not? Well, let's find out. You were taught something since childhood in your community, then you start doubting in it. This doubt is not necessarily bad, because it can cause you to go and research, it can cause you to start thinking and engage in tafakkur, which all of these things are recommended in our religion. So we are inshallah going to discuss reconnecting with God, and many of us may find may find some of these discussions that we're going to have, inshallah, a bit uncomfortable, because we're going to look at them from different perspectives. Inshallah, during these nights, tonight, inshallah, we'll talk about the concept of tawakkul and how can we connect with it, engage with it, without having to go through some of the negativity which often comes with it if we misunderstand the concept. Some of the wrong perceptions that we may have, which can possibly be crippling in our life, rather than it being empowering and causing success in our lives. We'll talk about that tonight, inshallah. In the next nights, we're going to talk about the concept of sadness and happiness. Is our religion a religion of sadness, or is it a religion of joy and happiness? Which one is it? Inshallah, we will be talking about the concept of gratitude and how gratitude can help us in life. Gratefulness. And do we have gratefulness in our religion? Or no, it's just for these, foreigners who talk about gratitude lists and all of those things that, you see on social media. Or do we have something similar to that? We'll talk about that, inshallah. We'll talk about the concept of dua. Many of us are disconnected with dua. We do dua, but we don't know what to expect. Am I to do dua and expect the same thing that I'm asking for? Well, obviously, human experience shows that the majority of the things that you ask for, at least the way you expect to receive it, you do not receive it. So what's the point of doing dua? We'll talk about that, inshallah. And a number of other topics we will discuss. But speaking of reconnecting to God in general, why is it important to discuss this? Because today, we as human beings are going through a very difficult time. We are bombarded with so many different thoughts, theories, ideas, facts. Like, we're not in a situation where we're looking for facts. We have facts, but we have just too many facts, and we don't know which one to hold on to and which one to just live our lives based on that. We're going through a lot of confusion and a lot of mental health as well, as a consequence of that, as a result of that. A lot of meaninglessness, a lot of hopelessness. And sometimes when someone is going through this, it's very interesting. You see, the state of this human being, whatever it is, he attracts a particular group of people around him, but not just that. If a person is a person who's always sad and hopeless, they will connect to religion and find verses and narrations to justify their position. You see the person who, is hopeless, they've probably not succeeded in business, in life, due to certain things which we are going to discuss. We're going to discuss the system of God, inshallah, in these nights, which we need to learn about the system of God, the way He's created this universe, so that we can be successful, even in our, financial life, even in our emotional life, etc. But you see, this person, the perception they have of religion, the perception they have of life, influences which part of religion they connect to. You see this person, you sit with them, if they're religious, they suddenly say, yeah, we also have a narration. The narration says, Ad-dunya sijnul mu'min. Dunya is the prison of a mu'min. We shouldn't engage in, any of these activities which brings us joy and happiness and success, and, we shouldn't really thrive for the dunya. We shouldn't thrive in dunya. We shouldn't strive for the dunya. And they will use narrations for it as well. And then you see there's a person who's succeeding, a person who's growing in life, a person who's, joyful, happy, engaging with life in a positive manner. They will also find the narrations and verses. So this is very important. We need to sit down and discuss and say, hey, which one is our religion at the end of the day? We're not necessarily going to be giving the final answer, but inshallah we'll shed some light, hopefully, in the coming nights. We need to have these discussions because the world we're living in, the modern age, has caused a lot of us to go through a lot of these challenges that previously we didn't have, or we had in a very, very smaller scale. How does God help? You may say, okay, everyone's going through these difficulties. hardships. It's a time that we have depression, not like any other time before. I agree. But what does that have to do with the concept of God and reconnecting with Him? I'm with you, 100%. If it wasn't for some of the verses that we have, if it wasn't for some of the narrations that we have, I would have been with you and I say, hey, let's just go and figure it out. Let's just, attach ourselves to some, let's say, I don't know, philosophies, some concepts that people talk about. Even, today, there's lots of people who engage in meditation, mindfulness, without even having faith or belief in God or anything like that. So let's just go and do that and see if it works or not. But when we go to our narrations, when we go to our verses, we see that it talks about Islam not on a level that sometimes we are introduced to today. That, hey, engage in these actions, these ahkam, wajib, haram, and the impact, the effect you're going to see in the afterlife. You live a miserable life here, that's fine, but in the afterlife, inshallah, God is going to compensate for you. You get depressed, hopeless, here, that's fine, but in the afterlife, Allah is going to take care of you. Sometimes this is the approach they give us. And I'm not sure if it's right. Because when you go to the verses, you see that when God introduces our prophet, He says, we sent this person. What is he going to do now? Is he going to just sort out your akhirah? It's like he's selling tickets for akhirah, Some people are just smart. They come and say, hey, I've got, let's say, this many lands in akhirah. How many acres do you want? And I'm selling it here for how much? And some people, they fall for it. Back home, at least. So is that what the Prophet did? He came and he promised something and then said, okay, this life, I'm not going to necessarily help you with your life here. I'm not going to give you any particular teaching which is going to benefit you here, but it's just going to benefit you in the hereafter. Was that the case? You see in the verse of the Quran, it introduces the Prophet. It says, he has come down. He has come to you. يحل لهم الطيبات ويحل لكم الطيبات ويحرم عليكم الخبائث. He makes the tayyibat, the pure things, halal for you. يحرم عليكم الخبائث. He makes the impure things haram upon you. Okay, so what would be the result of this? Is that it? So that in the hereafter we receive some, good things? وَيَضَعُ عَنْكُمْ إِسْرَكُمْ وَيَضَعُ عَنْهُمْ إِسْرَهُمْ وَالْأَغْلَالَ الَّتِي كَانَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ. And He lifts from them their burdens. There are burdens you experience in life here. The Prophet's teachings are there to lift these burdens off your shoulders. وَالْأَغْلَالَ الَّتِي كَانَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ. And the chains that they were surrounded by, they were held hostage. He wants to take these chains off. When you believe in God, when you reconnect to God, you're saying La ilaha before you say illallah. That La ilaha is very important. When you say La ilaha, that means I'm believing in no God but God. I'm believing in no source of rizq in this world other than God. I believe in no source of power in this world other than God. No source of love other than God. When you say La ilaha illallah, this is what you're saying. So it's not that, okay, in this world I have to take care of so many things. I have to take care of my boss. I have to make sure he's happy with me. I have to take care of my family. I need to make sure they're happy with me. I need to take care. I need to have so many of these concerns. And on top of that, you're telling me that I need to now impress God and make Him happy? That's something on top of it. That's a burden. If you ask me, that is a burden. But when God introduces the Prophet, He says, hey, and that's why the people understood. The people didn't have a hard time like we're having a hard time today. They were like, Baba, we understand. It makes sense. You're saving us. We feel empowered. الذين قال لهم الناس إن الناس قد جمعوا لكم. This is a group of Muslims, these people. This is the result of the teachings of the Prophet. You can see it now. He depicts it for you. الذين قال لهم الناس. These are people who, the other side, they tell them, they say, إن الناس قد جمعوا لكم فاخشوهم. Look, the army in front of you, they've all gathered against you. Fear them. But what happened to these people? They went through certain teachings and trainings of the Prophet. What was the result of it? He's showing you the product of this factory. It's real. It's not about akhirah necessarily. فَخْشَوْهُمْ. What did they say? He's not saying God told them to say this so that some of them would fake it, some of them would. No. The Quran is narrating it. It says, قَالَ لَهُمُ النَّاسِ إِنَّ النَّاسَ قَدْ جَمَعُوا لَكُمْ فَخْشَوْهُمْ. What was their response? قَالُوا حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. They said it, but not just saying it, they meant it. You can't fake it in the battlefield. They said, حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. Or in another verse, it says, this is their mentality when they are confronting the enemy. They say, look, you want for us one of the two good things. قُلْ هَلْ تَرَبَّصُونَ بِنَا إِلَّا إِحْدَى الْحُسْنَيَيْنِ. You want for us one of the two good things. Either you're going to defeat us and we're going to go to heaven, or we're going to defeat you. Okay, which we're going to win. Victory in this world. Both of them are good for us. This is how this person has reached Kamal, where their reliance on God is to a level that they can say this and really mean it. And then they say that, what do we want for you? We want for you one of the two bad things. Either we're going to kill you and you're going to go to hell, or you're going to defeat us and you're going to basically have more sins. So eventually it's going to be worse for you. So this is the product. When we see this, we realize that no, there's something going on that side. The Prophet has come to lift these burdens, to lift and open these chains. Okay, interesting. So when we see this, we realize that when the Quran talks about the mu'mineen, he's not talking about something superficial so that someone like me, Hassan Roushandel, can come and sit here and say, hey, I'm a mu'min, and that's it, it's finished. No, our narrations say Islam is the first step. You're Muslim? Perfect. That's the first step. But that's not the destination. You have a long journey to go. The people who came to the Prophet, famous story, right? They came to him. قالت الأعراب آمنا. They came and said, hey, we have Iman. And the Quran says, no. Wait there. Don't confuse the concepts. You've just brought Islam. Bringing Islam means what? You submitted, you're praying, you're fasting, you do the acts. But that's not Iman. ولكن قولوا أسلمنا. Say we've brought Islam. ولما يدخل الإيمان في قلوبكم. Iman has not entered the heart. So it's clearly stating that Islam is the first step. Congratulations. But don't see it more than what it is. What's the higher step then? Well, we have it in our narration. Please recite the salawat. In this narration, it says, Al-Imanu fawqa al-Islami bidarajah. Iman is one level higher than Islam. Iman is when it goes inside your heart, is when you truly believe in it. Okay, when you start believing it, is that it? I really and truly believe. And Iman is quite difficult. When you'll know you have Iman? In difficulties. There was a time in Qom, I went to one of the teachers and I was really, at that time I didn't know some of these concepts. So in my opinion, I thought that, okay, I have Iman. And my role in life, my purpose was just to hold on to this iman. That was my perception. But then, when I went to him, and I was asking about, for example, certain things like an evil eye, or some of the other concepts, I was discussing with him, and I said, hey, why is it that someone like me may be impacted by evil eye? And he told me, he said, well, why not? I mean, normal people. So I said, no, but why doesn't, for example, I don't know, this great figure in our community, or this person who is famous, is marja, whoever, why doesn't he have that? And this person looked at me and said, well, it's because of their level of iman. And I didn't take it well. And I was like, what do you mean? Do you think, are you trying to say that I don't have a good level of iman? And at that time, I didn't understand. But if you ask me now, reading some of these narrations, if you tell me I don't have iman, I'll say, yeah, you're right. You don't too, probably. But that's just my ego saying it. But really and truly, when I look at myself, yeah, I wouldn't say I have iman. Because iman is something very deep. It's something that's really true to yourself. We're going to discuss this. I'm not here just to say, okay, this is it, and we're going to go home, and we don't know how to do it. Inshallah, we'll talk about some practicalities here as well. But this is an introduction to reconnecting with God, the main topic that we have for tonight. In the next nights, inshallah, when we get into the main topics, each night we'll discuss, and then we'll give some practical lessons from the narrations, from the verses, to how to increase that and how to go take these steps further in life. So iman is فوق الإسلام بدرجة, and taqwa is higher than iman then. When you start developing iman, that iman inside you, one of the signs of iman is that you see that it pushes you towards an action. That's when you know you have the iman. If the iman is, supposed iman is there, but it doesn't really result in any action, it's not an iman. It's a piece of information. It's a submission. You've submitted to this concept. Yeah, I agree, God exists. Yeah, I agree, I have to do good deeds in this world. Yeah, I agree, there's a hellfire. But do we have iman or not? That's when, one of the signs that it has to result in some level of action. And then higher than iman is taqwa, is when you develop this sense of God consciousness, that in every moment of life, it directs you towards the right rather than the wrong. And this taqwa is not translated correctly when we say fearing God. It's more about the state of consciousness of God. Perhaps this is a better translation. And a person who reaches the level of taqwa is someone who their consciousness constantly, in every moment of their life, is directing them towards good. And it's warning them of what is bad. And this is a higher level of iman because they've reached that mastery now. And then, what's the last step? Higher than taqwa is yaqeen, is the state of certitude, certainty. When inside you feel calm, you're relaxed, whatever happens outside. Now, when I'm saying this, you can probably think of certain stories, especially related to Karbala, how in the external of the Imam, there's chaos, there's so much happening. But inside, there is a sense of itminan. This is not for us to see and just say, wow. This is for us to see and say, okay, that's a state of itminan. Cool. Now, how do I get there? That's what's important. Otherwise, what's the point? Subhanallah, MashaAllah, wow. So what? What does that have to do with me? For us, it's important to ask, how do we get there? And when we look at religion, my wrong perception that existed before, that I have iman, I just need to hold on to it. As long as I hold on to it, I'm good. No, that was just the first step. Let's embark on this journey together. If we want to embark on this journey of reconnecting with God and getting closer to Him, to the extent that inshallah, I'm not going to say how many years or months or days, but inshallah, sometime in the future, not tonight. I'm not going to reach it tonight, but sometime in the future, inshallah, I'll get there where I have itminan. And the person who has itminan in their heart, believe me, the senses of hopelessness, senses of purposelessness, meaninglessness, they don't have that. I'm sorry, maybe some people would like to say otherwise. I've seen some people lecture and they say today, because there's, the discussions of mental health issues is, very common, everyone's talking about it. I've seen lectures that said, for example, Prophet Ya'qub was depressed. Right? Or for example, our Prophet went through depression. I don't think that's the case. And I will prove it. I have the verses here, inshallah, probably tomorrow night. I don't think we don't have time tonight. But tomorrow night, inshallah, when we discuss the concept of tawakkul, we're going to explain the story of Ya'qub and Yusuf, how he learnt from that story. Ya'qub himself, he grew from that story. I'll explain how. He didn't know something and God taught him through this lesson of Yusuf leaving, and then Binyamin he had to send him to. We'll explain that. But one thing for sure, I'm certain about it. I'll explain why. You can see my argument. They were not depressed. Depression is when you're hopeless, when you have a sense of, okay, that's it. I don't have any hope. I can't even get up. That wasn't the case. And I'll show you the verse for Ya'qub that he wasn't depressed. So when you reach that level of itminan, there is good things that happen. The Quran talks about the awliyaullah, those people who are close to God, the walis of God. That you want to translate it as the friends of God, you want to translate as those who, waliya means when someone is so close, sitting right next to. These are the awliyaullah. What are their qualities? Have you ever thought, okay, I want to know this person who's awliyaullah. I know he's good, he's close to God, he can do miracles. I don't care about that. What are the characteristics of this person? Ala inna awliya Allah la khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahzanun. The awliyaullah, they don't have fear. They have fear, but they have fear of God. They have fear of their own actions. They have fear of doing something that will then take away from that one moment extra they could have had to feel the presence of God, but because of their heedlessness, because of their ghafla, they didn't have that. They have a fear of that, they do. But they don't have fear in this world. The people who were trained by the prophets, they said, when the army was in front of them, they said, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. God suffices us, and He's a good wakil. Now, let alone the prophets themselves. So this is how it is. These are the signs. They don't have khawf. La yahzanun. They don't have huzn, sorrow. You see, sometimes people sit down and they're just suffering. They don't suffer. They have pain. Pain is inflicted on all of us in life. But they don't sit down suffering. And how sometimes, unfortunately, we are taught about some of the ma'soomeen that they sat down crying day and night and complaining about why did this happen to me and everything. These are wrong. These are our own perceptions, limited understandings. Basically, through those limited understandings, we're looking at the ma'soomeen and we impose our own understanding on them. It wasn't the case. Yes, there was difficulty, pain. Everyone goes through it. You cry, that's fine. But that state of hopelessness that you sit down, okay, what am I going to do now? I can't bear this anymore. None of these things. And we will explain, inshallah, in the coming nights. Please recite the salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So inshallah, we are going to embark on this journey together, a journey towards reconnecting with God. We are going to use the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt, inshallah, as much as I can, to my capacity. I'm going to use the dua of Arafah of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, because that's a very good indication of what his inner state was. You know, when you look at the du'as, this is very important. Sometimes it's good to look at these du'as not as something that I'm saying with my own tongue. Like when I'm reading Dua Kumail, this is the statement that Imam Ali has made. When I'm reading it and I'm saying it myself, of course, probably 95% of it is not true, because I don't believe in these words. I haven't reached that state myself. But sometimes it's good to read these lines, but with the mindset, with the approach that I am seeing what it's like for someone who's the wali of God. How do they see the world? What's their inner state like? What are they feeling? So that maybe I can aspire towards reaching that level at some point in my life. You know, there should always be hope. So when we're looking at Dua Arafah, this is Dua Arafah of Imam Hussain. He's going to Karbala, you know, and you may think, okay, there's some level of fear, but what is he replacing it with? How is he substituting that with something which is connecting him with God? Definitely human beings go through fear, but it's about how they deal with it. How is he doing that? Let's see, inshallah. We're going to use Dua Arafah, inshallah. Two themes, main themes that we're going to use Dua Arafah, and use those concepts from the dua in our lectures and explain what do we need on this journey of getting closer to God. One, which is very important, is about God. So part of the dua introduces God to us. Not just God, but the system of God. We are living in a system that God has created this universe. He introduces God and the system. So we have to pay attention to that. We're going to mention some points about God and the system so that we know Him and how He's created everything and how He deals with things. And the second one is knowing the insan. So basically the internal and the external. The internal is yourself, knowing a bit more about yourself and how you should purify this self on this journey. And the other one is about how to see the world and the creation of God and utilize that for our journey, inshallah. We will discuss that. I'm just going to say the first line of the dua, and I think we have another 3-4 minutes, am I right? Imam Hussain alayhi salam, it's narrated that he starts the dua with saying, Alhamdulillah alladhi laysa liqadha'ihi dafi' wala li'ata'ihi mani'. He starts with the praise. Praise be to the Lord, who laysa liqadha'ihi dafi'. If something He ordains, if something He has set for you, no one can change that. Rest assured. He's teaching you about God, because when the Ahlul Bayt or when Islam comes and says connect with God, the most important thing for them to do is to introduce this God, because people were familiar with the concept of God before. Okay? They knew about God, but they had wrong perceptions of God. So that's why Islam, one of the responsibilities of the Prophet of Islam was to come and introduce the right version of God. Because if you connect to the wrong version of God, then your life is basically ruined. Not just your life, your afterlife is ruined as a consequence of that. So if you are to connect with God, you better know who He is to your level of capacity, but connect with Him. from the right angle. لَيْسَ لِقَضَائِهِ دَافِئ. Interesting. وَلَا لِعَطَائِهِ مَانِعٍ. He says, look, if God is to give you something in life, no one can take that away from you. Let that sink in. Remind yourself of that in your life. Because if you are to connect with Him on a daily basis, our religion teaches us that. The religion teaches you about what God is like, but not just leaves it there. Okay, every day, 5 times, you get up, you pray to that God. And the du'as that are after the salat reminds you every moment of that version of God, not the version of God that is a burden that you have to satisfy everyone else, but the version of God that if you rely on, you don't need to worry about your boss anymore. You have no one to satisfy other than Him. So it lifts the burden, it makes you a free man. If you see yourself to be a slave to something, we're all a slave to something in life. Either it's money, or it's family, or it's our stomach and food. It's something that takes away our will, controls us, and drags us to one direction or the other, without necessarily us wanting to do that. So when it comes to introduce God, it says, hey, this God is someone that you have to say La ilah before you say illallah about Him. You have to renounce everything else. You have to. And the more you do that, the more you get attached to Him. The more you renounce everything else. Now, this is not some hocus pocus. We're going to say what it means. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have family, you shouldn't have business or anything. It's all about the attachments. It's all about letting go at the right time. Being able to not be attached to things. And these are things we need to train ourselves. It takes years sometimes. And if someone's asking for meaning in life, if someone's asking for purpose, I don't know what I'm doing in my life. What's the purpose of life? Well, let this be your purpose in life. What is a better purpose? A journey of detachment. You're engaged in life, you're among people, but you're not with them necessarily. This is a very good purpose of life. You become a free person. You're always attached to everyone else, but you grow as a person that you're not in need of anyone. In 30 years perhaps it takes. But it's worth it. So the dua starts introducing God. And the God that it introduces then becomes worthy to rely on and do tawakkul on, which we're going to inshallah talk about tomorrow night. Please recite a salawat. You know, the more we learn about these concepts, then we come to these majalis and we sit and we listen to the story of Karbala. We listen to the story of our imams. The more beautiful it becomes. We shed tears, no doubt. But we start shedding tears less for feeling sorry for what they had gone through, and more for, yes, we're not happy that our Imam had to go through that, but we shed tears just by seeing that how is it that an individual like this, someone who, if we had today, you know, we talk about no fear, we talk about love. We haven't experienced love in our lives. We really haven't. Unconditional love. People went to the prophets, people went to Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and it wasn't the arguments that attracted them. It wasn't the lineage that attracted them. It wasn't the power of swinging the sword that brought them close. It was the character. It was the unconditional love that the Imam gave to people. It was the guidance that we miss in our lives today. That is the Imam. And then when we hear about the story, the tragedy, we shed tears, because why is it that the people didn't appreciate this? Why is it that the Imam, someone who when you bring your sword and you fight him, instead of him fighting back, he starts praying for you? Like, what of an individual is this? Ni'ma al-Mawla, Imam Hussain alayhi salam. What a Mawla, what an Imam. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. Everyone together. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
मदीना छोड़ चला आज मोहम्मद का नवासा दुआ करो अम्मा दुआ करो नाना दुआ करो अम्मा दुआ
करो नाना
दुआ करो अम्मा
दुआ करो नाना
वादे निभाए सारे वादे निभाए
सारे
परदेस जाने वाले दुआ करो अम्मा
दुआ करो नाना
दुआ करो अम्मा
दुआ करो नाना
लहू से अपने सजाऊंगा کربلا کی زمین میں گرم ریت پہ رکھ دوں گا خون بھری یہ جبیں کر دوں گا گھر کا گھر میں کر دوں گا گھر کا گھر میں خود موت کے حوالے دعا کرو اماں دعا کرو نانا دعا کرو اماں دعا کرو نانا تمام انبیاء روئیں گے دیکھ کر منظر اٹھا کے آگ کے دریا سے اپنے ہاتھوں پر لاؤں گا ان کے لاشیں لاؤں گا ان کے لاشیں جو گود کے ہیں پالے دعا کرو اماں دعا کرو نانا دعا کرو اماں دعا کرو نانا زمانہ کہتا ہے بابا کو ساقیے کوثر تو کیوں نہ پیاس بجھاؤں میں کربلا جا کر سب خون کے ہیں پیاسے سب خون کے ہیں پیاسے اماں وہ شام والے دعا کرو اماں دعا کرو نانا دعا کرو اماں دعا کرو نانا یہ ظلم دیکھنا ہے اماں کربلا کے میرے وطن سے میرے گھر سے میری آنکھوں سے اکبر کے ساتھ رخصت اکبر کے ساتھ رخصت ہو جائیں گے اجالے دعا کرو اماں دعا کرو نانا دعا کرو اماں دعا کرو نانا نہ کاٹ لیں یہ لئیں آ کر بے زبان کا سر زمیں کو سونپوں گا یہ کہہ کے لاشائے اصغر اے خاک کربلا تو اے خاک کربلا تو اس چاند کو چھپا لے دعا کرو اماں دعا کرو نانا دعا کرو اماں دعا کرو نانا بنا کے تربت اصغر جو رن سے آؤں گا لباس کہو نہ جو زینب سے میں منگاؤں گا گونجیں گے کربلا میں گونجیں گے کربلا میں پردیسیوں کے نالے دعا کرو اماں دعا کرو نانا دعا کرو اماں دعا کرو نانا جو چھٹ کے آئیں گے جب شام سے زندہ میں قیدی تمہیں سنائیں گے رو رو کر داستان اپنی نانا وہ زخم دل ہو نانا وہ زخم دل ہو یا پاؤں کے ہو چھالے دعا کرو اماں دعا کرو نانا دعا کرو اماں دعا کرو نانا دعا کرو اماں دعا کرو نانا حسین
توجہ زیارت. السلام علیکم یا ابا عبداللہ، السلام علیکم یا ابن رسول اللہ، السلام علیکم ابن امیر المومنین وابن سید الوسین، السلام علیکم ابن فاطمۃ الزہراء سید نساء العالمین، السلام علیکم جمیع شہداء کربلا خصوصاً ابو الفضل عباس ابن امیر المومنین، السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ. السلام علیکم یا مولا یا غریب الغرباء یا معین الضعفاء والفقراء فی یوم الجزا سلطان یا ابو الحسن علی ابن موسی رضا راضی بالقدر والقضاء، السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ. السلام علیکم یا صاحب الزمان الامان 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 من فتنة الزمان، السلام علیکم یا شریک القرآن، السلام علیکم یا امام الانس والجان، عجل اللہ تعالی فرجک وسهل اللہ تعالی مخرجک وظہورک ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ. اللہم صلی اللہ. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم.
ما كل ولي كله جبتني وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا وليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه رزقا طوى وتمتع فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
Mu'mineen, Namaz Jamaat Maghribin will be held here under the imamat of Sheikh Hassan Roushandel. You are all requested to please be present for Jamaat. The program at Al-Noor starts at 7:30 with the Tilawat Quran followed by Marsiya, and then Sheikh will be the member inshallah at 8 o'clock. Please spread the word across your family and friends. Please be in time so that you can benefit from such wonderful inspirational lectures from Sheikh Hassan Roushandel, inshallah. We have got a couple of minutes so you can all get ready for you. So in the meantime, we'll place the Janimaz here for Jamaat. Even the ladies can be connected for Jamaat Namaz. So please get connected to the Janimaz on the inside. Thank you.